Hello everybody, Raven Knight here. So today I want to answer one of the big questions I get asked. How do I become a writer? I get asked questions like this a lot, whether it's how to come up with ideas for writing, or how to beat writer's block, or how to stay motivated with my writing. I've been asked time and time again for advice on how to write stories, which is why I came up with this series, The Raven's Writing Room. It's kind of my attempt to share my insights and writing advice that I've collected over my 2 decades of writing stories and poems. And I'll be the first to admit, I'm not a master writer. I'm not the best wordsmith. I still have further to go, and I'm still learning this craft of writing. But in these videos, I want to help you understand better the art of writing as I've learned it, and I hope that through these vids, you might come to learn a few things. But before we can dive into more specific advice, I think that we should start simple, an introduction, as it were. There are a few things you should keep in mind when writing your story. Things that you should always remember and hold on to before you start writing your story, during the process of creating it, and even after you complete your story. These are things you should always hold on to in the back of your mind. So before you begin putting pen to paper, here's a few things to remember about writing. The first one, your first draft is never the final draft. I don't care if you've been writing for a week or for years, your first draft will have problems in it. I've never met a writer who wrote their first draft, looked at it and said, perfect, I'm ready to publish it. Those people who try to do that often don't even realize how many errors they've made. This isn't me insulting those writers, it's just a fact, because I do the same thing. You'll start writing a draft, you've got all your ideas together, and then partway through you'll suddenly realize, I don't like it, I could do better. Or you may finish it and go, this looks okay, but hey bro, could you come take a look at this? And then he looks at it and goes, you could do better, and then I have to go back and fix it. There's no shame in this. You should feel no shame in the fact that you may have to go through 4, 5, maybe even 6, 7, or 8 different drafts before you finally complete everything and get a final draft. But I guarantee you, taking that extra time to edit, look over, rethink, and replan out what you write will benefit you in the long run, because that means you're avoiding mistakes, editing the story to get better. Sometimes you may scrap a whole idea and restart from scratch, and you'll find that what you came up with was even better than what you started with. It has happened where I've started writing a final draft, I get halfway through and I go, I don't like this, I want to retry it, and then I just put it aside and I start something new and get something even better. So believe me, do not be discouraged if your first draft isn't coming out right. And if you say, but I've tried again and again and again and again, when am I going to get this? Keep trying. Keep trying. Don't feel discouraged. It takes time, because we'll get to this later, but writing is not easy. And anyone who told you it was lying to you. But remember, your first draft is never your final draft. Number 2, there is no shame in exploring the unfamiliar or the new. Have you ever heard the saying, write what you know? There's some truth to that. Basically, what the saying means is you should write things that you're familiar with or that you understand. It's foolish to try to write things that you don't have any knowledge on. So, like, if I'm a teacher, I was a teacher for a long time, and I'm writing a story from the perspective of a teacher, I know what it's like to be a teacher, so I can write with that knowledge. I'm a martial artist, so when I write fight scenes, I can use my knowledge of martial arts to help me write out these fight scenes. They really help me out. But I've never traveled through space. So does that mean I shouldn't write any stories where a character traveled through space or through the stars? Am I unable to write Star Wars or Star Trek now because I'm not an astronaut? Well, newsflash, the creators of Star Trek and Star Wars were probably not astronauts, and yet they did it. See, here's the reality. You should not be afraid to try new things. You shouldn't be afraid to jump into the deep end of the pool head first, as long as, there's a caveat, as long as you've had a swimming lesson. Here's what I mean by that. Just because I've never traveled through space doesn't mean that I can't do research. I can't watch movies on the subject, listen to documentaries, listen to people who've done it before, do some reading, do some research, learn more about the topic at hand, and grow my understanding so that way when I write this, I have a better knowledge. The worst thing you can do is jump into it with absolutely no knowledge and assuming it's fine, I'll come up with it. And I feel like that's what we've seen a lot of in a lot of video games and movies and TV shows nowadays, where people just say, I don't know the first thing about this franchise or about this style or about this genre, but who cares, I'm going to do it anyway because it can't be that hard. You don't want to do that. Explore, grow, gain new understanding, and then don't be afraid to try brand new things, because the best stories out there were probably stories that no one ever thought to write. Sometimes that crazy little idea in the back of your head that you think, oh man, I have this really nutty idea, but no one's going to want to read it. Trust me, someone wants to. But if you're afraid to go into that deep end because it's a little scary or you may not know what's down there, take a swimming lesson and dive in. Number 3, tropes and cliches aren't your enemies. There is this stigma in the writing world that cliches are bad. Cliches and tropes are bad. You need to avoid them. You shouldn't have them. And the more cliches you have, the worst. I'd like to dash that whole idea. Cliches are not bad or good. They just are. Cliches and tropes exist because we've been writing and telling stories for so long, they've become ingrained in our writing. I know this because I experimented once. I tried to write a zombie story that tried to avoid all the classic zombie cliches. I wanted to create a story that avoided them altogether. It was impossible. I soon found myself writing the cliches in without even thinking about it. Why? Because some stories are just going to have these cliches in them. It's just going to happen. Now you can subvert the cliche. You can dance around the cliche. You can even poke fun at the cliche. There are ways you can use the cliches and the tropes to your betterment and to your approval, but the fact is, odds are pretty good that cliche is going to come up somehow, some way. How you deal with it is where we see the skill as an author. That's where we see the real skill of your writing talent, how you use the cliche and the trope. The way you know a cliche or trope is bad is if the audience notices it and groans at it. But if you can play off the cliche and the trope and use it in a creative and inventive way, or do it in such a way that it makes the audience happy that they saw it, then you got something working for you. So I would honestly say tropes and cliches aren't your enemies. Don't be afraid of them. Just be careful with how you use them. Number 4, write for you, but consider your audience. There's this paradox in writing where people will say you should write what you want, but sometimes what you want isn't what the audience wants. I'll give you an example. The Star Wars sequels. I'm sure that Kathleen Kennedy and her team were writing what they wanted when they created the Star Wars sequels. You can't fault them for that. They were probably writing what they wanted to write. It certainly wasn't what the audience wanted. See, there's this paradox. Do you write for you, or do you write for your audience? I think there's a balance there. You should always write what you want to. If you aren't invested in your own work, if you're not invested in the project you're working on, then it doesn't matter how long or how hard you work on it. It's not going to feel good to you. You're not going to like it. You should enjoy what you create, I feel like. So write for you, definitely. But if it's all for you and you're not considering the people who may read your work, then you're missing something important. Have you ever heard the saying, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? There's a similar phrase about writing. If you write a story but no one reads it, was it worthwhile? Was it a good story? The audience does matter when you're writing a story. Now, if you're only writing a short story that only you and maybe one or two others are going to read, whatever. You know them, you know what you're getting. But if you're publishing a piece for the world to see, you do need to consider what your audience will think about it. You do need to consider whether this is pleasing, whether this is going to be something that your audience will enjoy, whether it's going to be something that will make them think. Am I saying that you're going to please everyone? Absolutely not. You do need to be aware of that. Not everyone is going to like everything you write. You're going to get criticism. You may even get hate or backlash. You may offend some people with what you write. That is a risk that you play when you write to publish and release it to the general public. That is a risk you will take. I've gambled with that risk before, and I've come up on the short end sometimes. But the fact is, as you write, yes, write for you. Write something you're going to enjoy writing, but do consider what you're writing and how it's going to be perceived and how it's going to be accepted by your audience. If I'm writing a Star Wars story that goes in complete contrast to the lore of Star Wars, it doesn't matter if it's what I want to write. I'm going to piss off the audience, and they're the lifeblood I need to keep writing. So write for you, but consider your audience. Number 5, want to get better at writing? Read more. Want to know the best way you can get better at your diction and your language skills and your writing style? Want to know the best way you can do that? Read. Read books. Read the work of other people. You should read people like Shakespeare, Poe, Kipling, Rowling, Tolkien, Lewis. Read more people. Read different kinds of writing. Read different genres of writing. Understand how they craft their sentences, how they discuss things, how they describe things, how they build their worlds, how they build their magic systems, how they build all these things you get from reading more. There's only so much you can offer from your own head. And here's the reality. You're like, oh, come on, isn't that lazy? You are aware that all other writers did this. Tolkien famously learned from other people and borrowed from other people. I don't mean like he plagiarized. I mean he learned how to improve his work by reading other people and learning from other things like mythologies. Lewis did the same thing. Rowling did the same thing. Poe did the same thing. Shakespeare did the same thing. They all did this. They all learned and grew by reading and understanding what other people created. So do you want to get better at writing? The best advice I can give to you is read more. read books. Read the work of other people. And sometimes you're going to read work that you don't like. You're going to read work and go, man, this guy did not do well. Now you know what not to do. And then you're going to read something and go, wow, that was such a cool way of phrasing that. And now you're going to know a new way to phrase something. Trust me, it'll pay off in the end. Number 6, all good stories are based on cause and effect. Now you kind of wonder, what does that mean? One of the worst things I can see a writer do is not understand the value of the cause and effect in a plot. Let me give you an example. If we start off a story with a guy running through the woods, and then he runs into a bear, and then he runs into a wolf, and then he runs into a witch, and then he runs into bandits. This isn't a story, this is a series of events that have nothing to do with one another. But if we change it, a boy is running through the woods because his house was just burned down by these bandits. Therefore, he's trying to find help and get away. While running through the woods, this running away causes him to bump into a witch who was wandering through the woods looking for a new apprentice. She meets the boy and sees the bandits, and seeing that the boy is in trouble, therefore decides to protect the boy from the bandits. Seeing that the boy is in need of shelter and help, she decides that he may be the person she's looking for. So, because she found this boy and because she's looking for an apprentice, she decides to take this boy to become her apprentice back to her place. Now we have cause and effect. The boy was running because he was being chased, and he bumps into the witch because she was wandering through the woods looking for something. And since they ran into each other, therefore she decides to protect him and make him her apprentice. This is fundamental. This is very basic. This is very simple story structure, and it would obviously need some more dressing and a little bit more to go with it. But this is a little better than just, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. You need a cause and effect. Because this, therefore this. Because that, therefore this. This is how you write good plot, good story structure. Why? Because that's the way life goes. Random events do happen, it's true, but there's a cause and effect to just about everything. And that creates much better story. It creates stakes, it creates direction, and it helps us make sense of what's happening around us. Number 7. Constructive criticism is your friend. Let me be very clear. You're going to get haters no matter what you write. No story is going to be perfect. No story is going to please all tastes. You're going to get haters. But there are also people, editors especially, who are going to look at your work and say, this could be better. Or they'll say, let me tell you how you could fix this. You know, it's funny. I was listening to Mahler's old video on Ant-Man and the Wasp and Quantum Mania or something like that. I can't remember exactly the title. I think that was the name of the movie he was critiquing. But in it, I remember there was a clip where they showed Bill Murray saying that the writer of this movie was making it up as he went along. My constructive criticism of that is no. You don't make up stories as you go along. That's the worst thing you can do. But some people would be offended if I said that. If I said, hey, you shouldn't be making up the stories you go along. You should be fixing this along. You should be fixing this. You should be having a plan already in mind for the ending. Some people won't take that well. They'll say, oh, who are you to tell me? It's my project. It's my art. You don't tell me what to do. No, constructive criticism is the way you grow. I am blessed to have people like Hannah, Aaron, Jay, my own brother, people who are going to look at my work and say, I think this could be better. Or, you know what, this is nice, but you could do this differently. I've even had some say, I think you should rethink this whole thing. And that's good. That is good. It doesn't mean that I always have to take their advice if I disagree with it, but the fact that they're there to help me means that I can grow and improve as a writer. And quite often, I like what they have to say. Sometimes they'll point out something I never thought about. So don't run away from constructive criticism or assume that all constructive criticism is necessarily bad. Don't make up things as you go along and then get mad at people when they say this is trite. Take the constructive criticism. Listen to what other people have to say. You may grow and understand more of what you're creating. 4 eyes are better than 2. If you have another set of eyes on your work, you may notice things that you didn't before. And then finally, the last piece of advice, and probably the most important piece of advice I can offer right now. Like this is probably more important than all of them because it takes all of what I've said before into an equation. And here it is. Writing is not easy. Writing is not easy. Now, you may say, Raven, I know that. Now, hear me out. You will find books. You will find guides. You will find YouTube shorts. You will find YouTube videos. You'll find seminars. You'll hear professors. You'll hear all these people say to you, writing is easy as long as you follow this step, or writing is simple as long as you do this formula. Have you always wanted to be a writer? Here's what you do. You're going to hear all these people tell you it's easy to be a writer as long as you do blank, or as long as you listen to me, or as long as you give me money, or as long as you watch my videos, or sub to my channel, or what have you. You're going to hear people say this all day long. I'm going to go ahead and tell you this right now. It does not matter what they tell you or what they offer you, because writing is not that simplistic. Writing is an art, and like every art, it requires time, patience, and dedication to improve it. It will take some people only a few months to improve their craft and get good. Others, it will take years and years of discipline and practice to get better, because that's how art works. You are building up a skill and a style and an art form. You are learning to become better at it. You are learning to master it. It will take time. I have been writing for 2 decades or so, and I'm still learning. I'm still improving. I'm still discovering new things. I'm still not always proud of my work. No self-help book or YouTube short has helped me become better in more ways than just practice and diligence. But if someone tells you, oh, it's easy, then let me tell you what's going to happen. Number one, you're going to assume they're right and it is easy, and you're going to get started and you're going to hit failure after failure after failure, and you're going to assume you're just bad. No, it's not that you're just a bad writer. It's that you bought into the idea that it's easy as long as you follow a simple formula. And since you're still learning, the formula doesn't work 100% of the time for you, or you're not always sure how you approach the formula, and so you don't know exactly what to do. The other thing that may happen is you assume that that's not for you, and you walk away from it and try to do it yourself, and you're not going to have the support or help that you need to get yourself started. Here's the reality. Writing is not easy. Don't approach it with the mentality that it is easy, but also don't approach it with the mentality that it's impossible. Writing is an art form. It takes time, energy, dedication, learning, all of this and more. So when I write these Raven's Writing Room videos to give you advice, please understand, I'm not saying, look, if you just do what I tell you, it'll be easy, okay? You got this in the bag. It's so simple. No. It's not that simple. It's not that easy. I wish I could tell this to Hollywood writers these days. Writing is not that easy. Writing takes time, practice, and heart. More than anything, I think it takes heart. You should write things with passion, with emotion, energy. You should write things that you care about but you also need to care about the audience. You should take time to look at your drafts and edit them and fix them and make it a labor of love. You should explore new things. Don't just go with the familiar. Read more people. Learn. Grow from them. Remember cause and effect. Practice that. All these things and more go into writing. So anyone who ever told you, oh dude, writing's easy, just do this, I laugh at it. Their advice may be good. They may be giving really good formula. They may have a formula. I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty good way to write a character. Hey, that's a good way to write a drama. Sometimes I will agree they have good advice. But if they say, dude, writing is easy as long as you do this, no. What you supplied is a good formula or a good help guide or good suggestions or good advice, yes, but that doesn't make it easy. Watch this. I can do the same thing. Winning a marathon is easy. Just run faster than everyone else. Sounds easy. Putting it into practice isn't. Light parrying in For Honor is easy. Just have a better reaction time than the other guy. Easy to say, not as easy to do. That's why I say what I do. Don't be discouraged if you're struggling. Don't be discouraged. Keep working at it. I think that writing is something that we should all strive to improve at, especially if we want to become published. So as I work on this series, I hope you guys enjoy what I have to share, what I have to say. I hope that these 8 tidbits of advice help you guys out. Just keep them in the back of your mind. And keep in mind, I'm not a great writer. I'm not going to sit here and claim that I've mastered it all. But these are some things that I keep in the back of my mind whenever I'm writing a story. And sometimes I need to be reminded of them. But I hope that these help you guys out. And as always, folks, I will see you in my next video. Take care.